Hi. So I wanted to make a video today. This is my first video that I've made, so bear with me if it's weird. Um, is the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I have just done something that is a first for me, which is I have just finished my very first sketchbook. Well, not my first sketchbook I've ever had, but my first sketchbook that I've ever finished. I've been working in sketchbooks for probably, I don't know, the last 25 years or so. But oftentimes I would be working one, get a new one, get excited about using it, and then start the new one, or just move on to something else and decide I didn't like the old one anymore. And so I have a lot of half-used, quarter-used, eighth-used sketchbooks lying around. But since getting really heavily back into making my own artwork, I have been using one sketchbook alone, and that is this guy. And I have just pretty much finished it. So I wanted to do a little video to mark the occasion and go through it. It's kind of a nerve-wracking thing for me. This probably won't come as a surprise to people that know me well, but I am a perfectionist. So I don't want to show people usually any work that is unfinished, or I don't like, or it looks bad, or it was unsuccessful, or anything like that. But the very nature of sketchbooks is that that is exactly what is supposed to be in them. So I am trying to get over myself a little bit and just go through the sketchbook so that yeah, you can see a little bit about my journey as I have got back into making art after a big hiatus that I had after college. So graduated college almost 9 years ago, which seems like a very long time, and it is a long time. And due to a kind of a number of factors, which I'll probably get into elsewhere, it's not really too long a story for this video, but basically, you know, I had a few kind of personal issues and also a real crisis of confidence during and immediately following being at art school. I think from being, let's say, strongly encouraged into creative avenues, which I did not necessarily feel entirely comfortable in. They weren't really what I wanted to be doing. I feel like I thought that I was given the impression that drawing and painting, which is what I want to really be doing, was just a little bit basic for what they really wanted from me. And so I just really had kind of a crisis of my own creativity. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't feel good enough with what I was doing. And so it kind of became habit forming in such a way where I would go a couple of days without making anything, that then turned into months, that then turned into a couple of years. So although I would kind of sporadically be making art in between that time, I would say that I really took another big push back into it around 2015, which is when I started this sketchbook. So I moved around a lot. I moved around the UK. I moved to California, which is where I am now. It's not such a sunny day here in California, but I am here. And so it was when I got back, really got in here, lived on a boat for a while and didn't have any room there, but moved off that boat and just really made a push to get back into making artwork. And so that's where we're starting here. So just a couple of things about this sketchbook. This is a just standard Blick, hardbound sketchbook. I've put some kind of bits and pieces on it. One thing that I have realized is that I don't do well with having very fancy supplies, namely sketchbooks and notebooks, because I try to keep them for best, i.e. never. So I have all these beautiful notebooks and sketchbooks sitting around that I've never used and I'm probably never going to use. So my piece of advice in choosing a sketchbook is choose something that you're not afraid to trash, which is these guys for me. So I've actually just got another one that I'm about to start now that I've finished this one. But I found this worked really well. So I've kind of done some mess, you could probably call it. Over the cover, I've got a few little labels here with just reminders, notes to self. I've got here no 0 days. There's some stickers that I was given. Here's a little leaflet from the Pop Culture Gallery that is here in LA. As you can see, it's Arrested Development reference. Some stickers from various sources as well. I've dated it now that it's finished, as you can see. So yeah, let's get started. One thing I want to say is that my sketchbook really is a home for my bad drawings and my experiments, and that's why I do have some trepidation about going into this, because as you'll see as I go through, I'm even very self-conscious about my own sketchbook. For some reason, I felt the need to annotate certain things, like when I know that a drawing is really bad, I don't know, I have to annotate that I know it's bad in case someone is looking through my sketchbook and doesn't know that I know. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I do it, but you'll see that I've done it. So just bear with that. You're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff as we go through. So on the first page, here we have some notes. Here we've got something that every sketchbook has to have, of course, which is a list of all the tarot cards, for some reason. I've got some notes about some materials that I wanted to buy, some of which I have bought, some of which I have not yet. I've got some swatches of some of my watercolors. Here is a permanent ink with some walnut ink. Here's some gestural drawings. This is representing the human body. This is pelvis, this is torso. Some rub-on gold, which I used for a little while before I kind of graduated to using a lot more gold leaf. Here I've got some different hardnesses of pencils. So really just notes. I like to do notes on the front and the back as well. You'll see as we get to the back there's a lot more of this kind of stuff too. So this is where I started when I was getting back into making art. It was with abstracts and it was in caustic. So I'm sure you already know this already, but encaustic is dealing with hot wax that you then melt and fuse down onto usually a panel. And I haven't really done so much of this ever since then, primarily because I just don't really have the right setup for it. You really need to be able to control your temperatures, and you need a very well ventilated place, like ideally a real life studio, which I don't have. I do all my work out of my house, so I just I'm not really set up right for it. But I had fun working with it for a while, and I can always show some of the pieces that I ended up doing. But one thing that I found is that even though I am still making abstract works, just like anything, you know, these develop and they get better with more practice. I found that also some of the figurative and portrait work that I do informs my abstract work in terms of form and tone and color theory and all that. So I kind of always flip-flop between portraiture and abstract. So if it seems a little bit all over the map, that's kind of just where I am. And hey, this is my sketchbook, so anything goes in here. So this was my first little encaustic stuff that I was doing. I have some notes and some mock-ups of some things. Let's move a little closer here. Some notes and mock-ups. It's kind of boring. These are very bad. I know they're very bad. These were probably the first portraits that I even attempted in a couple of years, and I totally forgot what I was doing. So there you go. This is an encaustic piece that I did. I don't know. I don't love the piece that I ended up with. I actually think that this kind of a thing was probably more successful. And here I've mocked up some ideas, some of which I did, some of which I didn't. Some more portrait doodles. These were, I think, just done on like crappy printer paper here and there that I ended up sticking in here. I do that quite a lot. I'll be working on something else or just doodling something, and I think, oh, I should put that in my sketchbook. So that's always an option. You know, that's why it always ends up kind of fat. There's a lot of tape and glue in here. This was the first piece that I finished in a very long time, and something that I have learned only really over the last few years, and I don't know why no one ever told me this before, so you may know this already, but if you don't, I am going to tell you now. This is the secret to art, and that is finish your stuff. because something that I have learned is that my work always looks crap and horrible and ugly until suddenly it doesn't. I don't know, maybe everyone assumes that everyone knows this, so no one feels the need to tell everyone, but your work will be ugly until it's not. It's not going to look perfect until it does. Now, you know, you may disagree with me. I'm sure that the only reason you're watching this video is because you've seen some of my artwork on Instagram or on my website, and you know me, or you know me personally, so you may disagree and feel free to disagree, but I think that you're never going to get better until you're finishing things, because then you never know where you're going wrong. And also, I learned that I abandoned a lot of pieces over my lifetime that maybe could have ended up looking good, but because they looked ugly at a particular stage, I abandoned them, never to be seen again. So that you can't really tell from what I'm showing you here, but these were just some references that I used to create a painting that I did that was my first final finished painting, and I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. So that was in 2015. Here's just some tests with some acrylic paint. I was doing something with a thistle, and so I wanted to do a reference of how someone else had done a thistle. I think the original reference from this came from some Timorous Beasties wallpaper. Tests of acrylic. This is something that I was doing in my portrait job. And here's where I started prep for my next painting after I finished that last one I was talking about. I actually never got around to finishing this painting, which is in direct opposition to what I just said. It is very close to being finished, but I got another idea for something, and it was definitely going in the right direction. I just got another idea for something, and then I think my skills improved between working on this and then the time that I would have come back to finish it. So actually, I'm not sure if I'll ever finish it, because I'll probably end up wanting to rework a bunch of stuff, but that's how it is. So here's some tests for hair colors. Like, I can even look at these now and tell you that I know that these colors are wrong. So that says it all, really. So I would probably want to go back and change that, and then change this, that, and the other thing, and it would get away from me. Here's some background. This is just kind of a sketch compositionally for the piece that I was doing. I was just working directly from a photograph, and I didn't change anything, which really doesn't show any kind of creativity. At this stage, I was just trying to get some skills back up. I don't recommend that you just try and copy photographs verbatim, because why? So, you know, but that's what I was doing here. So there you are. You can see here, this is the photo that I was working from. You can see that I've kind of marked in where some of the different shadings are in the skin tones. Basically, I know that a lot of artists, when working from photo references, will grid or project or trace and blow up to get their proportions right. I don't like to do that, because and it's, you know, it's just totally a personal choice. I don't do that because I'm always trying to improve on what I'm doing, and so in order for me to improve, I feel that I have to work on proportions and figure them out by myself, and that's something that has really helped my my portraiture come along. I'll do another video with some of my portraiture sketchbooks, because I do have some separate sketchbooks in toned paper that I have. So here again, some notes, some skin tone colors. Again, looking at these two look kind of right. This is not, I don't know. Yeah, again, so I can see some problems with these colors too. These are some, I didn't like this, so I actually ended up doing a redo of this on bigger paper that looks a lot better than this one, but this was an initial drawing. I did these drawings using an app called the Sketchy app, which if you're stuck for inspiration for something to draw, it's a really great app. I think it's only available on iOS. I use it on my iPad, but it's got lots of reference images, so you can use those and then upload your final artwork. So when I was trying to do a lot of practice, I used that app a lot. Here's some more. This one, I'm not sure if you can see, but it's got some texture in here. Obviously, it's an unfinished piece, but That's okay, it's a sketchbook. So this, I believe, is black permanent ink. This is when I moved most of my portraiture into another sketchbook that is this toned paper. And here you can see that I'm starting to experiment with using the paper tone as a mid-tone and then adding highlights here, and then how that differs from using a toned ground. So that's pretty self-explanatory. This is from another reference from Sketchy. Some portraits that I did, I guess, just kind of doodly things, because these are both on just weird paper that I stuck in. I don't think these, I guess this was never successful for me. I never liked this, but I guess this was semi-successful for me at the time, although obviously looking back, I can see a million problems with it. But I kind of like whatever happened here. I had a toned color and then some white, I believe, acrylic over there. It's a technique that I stole or liberated from one of my favorite artists, who is Egon Schiele. He always did these nice white glows around his figure that I think is really beautiful. So, steal like an artist. This is a portrait of David Foster Wallace. I was reading Infinite Jest at the time and got a little obsessed with it. So, I mean, I think you kind of have to get through it because it's so enormous. But so you'll see that there's a few portraits of him as we go through. This is my first little drawings I was doing on that toned tan paper, and I think some of the few that are stuck into here, most of them are in that other sketchbook. This, you can see that there has been a jump, right? So I think that you can look at this and then look at this that I did a couple of days later. And again, while this is not great, and I think I could do better now, there's marked improvement, and I'm starting to kind of get back in the swing of things. This may be I may be on around 2016 now, I think. Here is where I was studying some tone with smoke drawings. I actually did the first one I did was here, and so you can see the difference between what you imagine. I did not use a reference. See, look, crappy smoke test, initial drawing, not from life, experiment, blended with a Q-tip. So you can see this is what I imagine smoke looks like. Then I used some references, and this is what it actually looks like. So that's why references are really important. You can't just draw what you know or what you think you know, because it turns out, like Jon Snow, I actually knew nothing, because that's what I think it looks like, and it's really not. I did a couple of final finished smoke pieces as well, which are in a portfolio somewhere else. A lot of these are really just background drawings for other things that I did outside of my sketchbook, so there's very little kind of finished work in here. Mostly it's doodles and in front of the TV or trying to map something out. So here is, speaking of mapping stuff out, this is a color wheel that I did based off a limited, I think it's a Winsor & Newton watercolor palette. It's only got a few colors in it, so I was seeing what's possible to what kind of colors is possible to get with it, and then also some gestural head practice. Some more heads. These are some hands. It's actually kind of happy-ish with the shapes of some of these hands. Maybe these fingers are a bit short, but overall not horrible. This is a silly little thing that I was doing. It just isn't really anything. Again, some more tests. This was a test of watercolor pencil when I realized that watercolor pencil will not do the job in place of real normal kind of color pencil. Maybe it's just the ones that I was using weren't of high enough quality, but you can see they're kind of like grainy, gritty, not very easy to blend, so this looks like a bit of a mess. Some watercolor tests of bleeding colors into one another. Okay, yeah, here's another little David Foster Wallace, a little quote from him. I think I did this as a larger piece in India ink. This is Zadie Smith, I believe. Then I did, so this is a test for a piece that I did, again, another larger piece, but I was experimenting with using all kinds of weird colors to achieve skin tone. I mean, more successful in certain places than others. I think this little bit's kind of nice, but I'm not sure about that. This is horrible. This is me trying to draw cartoony type stuff with no reference, so we'll just ignore that for now. Some pattern, working on like geometric type shapes, something I did for a little while that I ended up abandoning. It's not really very me. I think I prefer to work in a more free way than these really tight constraints of geometry. And as you can see, I wasn't particularly great at it either, so we're cool. Here, this is my first time using some of the texture gel that I still use a lot in some of my more abstract pieces. You're going to see a lot of pages that have me just testing out colors. Some of these colors are actually quite nice. I think I may go back and explore this palette a little further. I'm not sure what I actually used that for. There's probably a watercolor floating around with these colors, or whatever these were for. Some portraits, some of which are more horrible than others. Let's say this one is horrible. This one, probably the best on the page. Cute little guy here. That's some of the geometry that I was enjoying a little bit more. Some of these ones are better than we had on the last page. Yeah, none quite so bad as we just saw. Kind of like this shape of this head. I was looking a lot into head shapes. I think now if I were to do that, this bit would come in a bit more. But it's good to look back on old drawings and think about what you would change. Look at what's wrong with them. Again, this whole page, don't like it. It's funny, weird expression. This is kind of nice. Again, this was something that I think I drew from my imagination, and now looking at it, I'm like, why did I think that eyelids would go that way and not completely the other way? So that's why you need to look at references. Clearly, I hadn't done enough portraiture up until this point. Maybe if you're going to try and pull portraits from your head, you need to do a lot of ones from references like these to figure out what the face actually looks like and learn a little bit more about the underlying anatomy. Okay, so here I watched Call Me By Your Name and I loved it, and that's all that is. This is Yupo paper. Oh, I can see it's still a little sticky. Something I learned is that this permanent ink doesn't ever really dry on the Yupo. I wish that eye was a little bit higher up because, as you can see, yep, no. So it's funny looking back on drawings, that stuff that I guess you do the whole piece and then you come back and look at it and you're like, oh, why did I put the eye there? Some more Yupo. I know what I was doing here. Normally I'll keep drawings that I think are quite bad, but for some reason, like I said earlier, I feel the need to be like, for anyone who may accidentally open my sketchbook at this page, I need them to know that I also know this is bad. So that's why I have to put an X through it for some reason. These are some head shapes based on the Andrew Loomis method. I was watching a video on YouTube about it, I think, so was doing some practice while I was watching it. That's kind of a fun thing to do. Here are some knees and legs. You can see that I have done more life drawing than any other kind of drawing or artwork, because I think that you can tell that even when I was out of practice, my figures are miles ahead of my portraits. A really bad habit I got into was doing life drawing and leaving the faces, because I thought, oh, I'm really just focused on what the figure looks like, but actually it just meant that my faces had a lot to catch up on compared to my the bodies. So this is kind of a nice knee here. I like this knee too. Yeah, this is Avon Sheila, my favorite. I mentioned him earlier. This looks like a skull wearing a mouth guard. We'll just move on. Again, some pretty decent looking legs. The feet are alright, maybe there's a bit too much curve in there. This, I think I just drew this from my head, and so as a result it doesn't look right. Little of which will be a running theme. This is something I was working on for a friend that we actually never ended up doing. Maybe one day. Hear that, John? Let's work on this concept again. These are some peonies, and then I'm just testing some glaze medium here. So I just wanted a place to put it, so I just shoved it over this little messy drawing that I'd done. Just some watercolor tests. Nothing to really see here. This is using some Conte crayon. Hadn't used it in a really long time. Didn't know what I was doing with it, as you can see. And you're about to see some of these annotations that I was talking about. This guy here. This is the worst drawing I have ever done. Do you know, I think to date, this still may be the worst drawing that I've ever done. If you see a different drawing that you think this is better than, please let me know what that drawing is, because I would like to know if I have actually ever done a worse drawing than this guy here. So, there you go. She's not too bad. So I don't know how you go from that to that on the same page, but whatever. Some more on Yupo. This is walnut ink. It kind of got a little lumpy in there. I think some of the coating started to come off the paper. This is Conte crayon. Here we go again. Very bad. You can tell that I just didn't like it very much. So I think I redid it on the next page. Yeah, I redid this guy. Looks like a totally different person. And I really should have put some paper in between these pages to stop this from happening, but I think that I just didn't like the drawings enough to really care about that, so there we go. This is Yupo paper again, just an experiment to see kind of how certain colors worked on it. I'm not really sure what this is for. This was when this marks the first day that I started really making a push to try and be doing some kind of art every day. I don't really always manage to do that because of, you know, sometimes life, and I've got another job and sometimes that gets in the way too, but this is when I really did make a push, and so I think that I'm not sure how evident it's going to be from my sketchbook, but it's you're definitely going to see the change. In some of my other work, you can see another marked improvement here in some of my portraiture. This is the New Zealand singer-songwriter Marlon Williams. I went to see him and was very enamored with his performance, and he also has a very interesting face that I wanted to draw. Maybe I'll try to draw him again now that I feel like I've come along a little bit from there. This is a still life I started. Again, I'm not following my own rules, but still life is not the most interesting thing to me, so I think I just wanted to draw something and didn't know what to draw, and then I probably got an idea to do something I really did want to draw. These are some gestural drawings for movement of the body. Some wildlife. I think this is a little fox cub. And some weird cartoony stuff. I just got some markers and was trying them out because I'd seen other people use markers and thought that they looked great, and clearly I didn't know what I was doing. That's okay. This is a little test drawing for a piece that ended up going into my tan notebook. So maybe you'll see that later. It's a setup of my living room that I had at one point. It's not that different from now. Maybe the pictures have moved a little bit. I don't know. The case is here, as you can see. Whoop. Okay. These were, I think, from my head, a little bit better than previous ones from my head. Still not amazing. I kind of like whatever was happening here with this background, though. Sometimes I just doodle while I watch TV or, you know, listen to podcasts or whatever, and so I think that's what that was. Some feature stuff. This is a series I did in a mixture of watercolor and acrylic paint. So actually most of the portraits were in this blue color, and or maybe this one, no, but I think it was this blue color. And then I did these kind of pastel colors around them. So I have a few, and I did some, I think mostly it was comedians that I was doing portraits of. This is John Mulaney, or was an early rendition of what ended up being a portrait of John Mulaney. Here, this one ended up being Jared Carmichael. This again, one of my friends. Sorry, this doesn't look like you. If you're watching this, just don't think this is what I think that you look like, because I am very aware that it's not. That one's a little better. Okay, and then I've got one more, I think. Yeah, this was Jenny Slate. Yeah, and then I think I was done with that concept, then I moved on to something else. Here's some messy pages of me experimenting with some oil pastel. Some more oil pastel. This was a large piece that I did a portrait of Raja Gemini, and this is a little thing that I was experimenting for this little gem that she's got hanging here. Again, I've got the piece over there. Doesn't live in the sketchbook. This is just the background stuff for it. Testing out some blending, although again I didn't put any paper between these pages, so something has come through. As you can see, there's so much just random stuff in here. Sometimes I just get an inkling that I'm going to draw something, and then I don't know what I do with it. Sometimes I find that the only way to think of what to do next is to work on something in the interim, which is what a lot of these things are. So yeah, some like abstracty stuff. This is where I was going large scale abstract, and I was doing some chromatography. So you can see that I'm starting to work on separations of color that kind of look a bit like a mess when you see them like this, but there was kind of a method to the madness of like seeing how to pull out color from blacks, how things layer over the top of each other, some color notes. This is some more examples of the chromatography, so you can kind of see how these spread out, and then I just did some little funny drawings over the top of them, just, you know, some things I'd seen, some not really with a view to doing anything. Some more little tests of watered down, I think it's watered down acrylic. This is horrible, we're not even going to look at that. More chromatography stuff. This is a little collage-y guy. I kind of thought it would be cool to do a large piece with loads of layers like this. I might still do it, but this is I think painted magazine paper. Chromatography, more chromatography, I think with Copic marker. This is a test piece for a big piece that I did that actually, still to date, is one of my favorite abstracts that I've done. It is based off of the water wall that I saw on a trip to Houston for a friend's wedding. You can't really see the colors that well here. It's more obvious in the finished one, but it's charcoal with under chromatography. So I would never be able to display these, because by the very nature of the paint or of the ink used, it's not light fast, so it would fade. If I tried to hang this on the wall, it would fade away to nothing. So I have to do prints of it if I'm gonna display it. Some colored pencil tests on paper. These are some nice, I think they're Derwent sketching pencils that are really nice for portraits. And they're all just these really, really nice muted tones, more chromatography. Some more just kind of doodlies. These are some little bits of concept work for an upcoming painting that I will do at some point, but have not got around to yet. So for some reason it's upside down. Little Conte crayon portrait. You can see, I guess, there's been some improvement in my Conte since the worst drawing I've ever done. So that's nice. I'm sure I'm going to get this just all over my face as we go, so we can see how that goes. these are those colored pencils in action. You can see how nice those tones are. This is an initial sketch that I did for a piece, I think it was carbon pencil I used in the end of my friend Morgan. It's kind of large scale. It took me a long time. Again, not inside the sketchbook. Don't know why I was doing just some little doodles. Classic. These are the initial sketches for the enormous painting that I am still working on. I am going to finish it at some point this year, but I am just kind of going back and working on it. It's just so daunting. It's such a big piece. I will eventually finish it, but I'm just doing it in layers and layers, and now I'm at a scary bit, which is the hands. So I think I'm putting it off as I work on other stuff, but I promise I will finish it before the end of this year. So here's all these different kind of ideas that I had, some notes about it, some more reference. Here's the rat that is included, peonies, how I was going to treat the colors, which ended up doing something a bit more complex in the actual one that still is not finished. Some more studies. This is kind of interesting. This is some notes that I took on a course that I was watching online. I think it was a free webinar by, I'm not sure, someone really great that I follow on Instagram that was telling me about how the different tones of color in the face. So here in the forehead is often where you'll find the lightest tones. So typically that'll be about a half tone lighter than any of the rest of the colors in the face. Then this is where most of your reds and pinks are concentrated, this kind of rosy area around the cheeks and nose. And then this is the most neutral of tones around the jawline. So that's interesting. I try and make notes of stuff like that where I can. As you can see, this kind of came through, but these are a lot of notes on color and oil and mixing flesh tones and oil. This is probably the final sketch that I did before moving on to the canvas. Just a master drawing of a Courbet piece that I quite like. This was a sketch for the face, sketch for the rat, sketch for the hands, as I was doing more specific stuff. And then here I'm getting into, as you know, I get ahead of myself, so while I'm working on something, often I'm getting ideas for the next thing that I'm going to work on. So these are some ideas for some of my next large-scale paintings, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess, and so as soon as I finish that one, I'm going to want to start another big one. So, again, issues that you don't notice whenever you're working on a piece, but you can see whenever you come back. Now I can look at this and go, okay, well, this bit's wrong. This ended up looking a bit cartoony. So I like to just kind of draw while I watch TV often, which ends up with me drawing people who are in the shows that I'm watching, and I think this is what happened with both of these. So kind of nothingy mess page, some ideas for background stuff, some more ideas for upcoming piece. This is to be one based on Adam and Eve. This is another one, clearly watching TV. I think I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is Seth Green. Here I've got, I didn't like the girl that I had under here, so I stuck this on top, but I didn't like her either, so that's fine. Just some life drawings from photo references, just quick studies. Some more ideas for some upcoming pieces. A little naughty page that doesn't really need any explanation. This is kind of as far as I have got with my planning for my next piece, that Adam and Eve piece I was talking about. This is pomegranate. I'm going to have to work some snakes into here somehow. I did a little fishy watercolor. This was an initial sketch before I decided to go with 3 fish instead of 2. Kind of just a little mess of page. Speaking of pomegranates, this is a little study for when I do get into having the pomegranate. Test pages stuck in here. No point having them loose, so might as well capture that. Another drawing. Hate this. Sorry, I sound like so down on all my stuff, but like I said, This is where I put my bad drawings. I try and keep my non-bad drawings out of here. So I will probably go through some of my other sketchbooks as well that do have some of the drawings that I am a bit happier with, but I just wanted to do this video because I want to show you what my sketchbook looks like. This was from a trip that I took recently to Australia. This is based on some barnacles that I saw. This is a water test for a piece that I ended up doing again outside of the sketchbook. These are some gold leaf pens that I was testing. I just do a lot of materials testing. I really want to learn about materials here. I was trying out some stuff for my website. Here's like some business plans for selling some prints. Again, tests of leafing, lumpies. This is kind of the stuff that I'm working on at the moment. I think we're actually at the end. So this is a test for limpets. Again, this is based on my Australia trip. I was playing Final Fantasy 15 and I was obsessed with it, so I drew the sword. Just silly little things, like as you can see, because we're now at the back, this is where all the random stuff goes, like I was sort of at the front. Little tests, little doodlings, some where I was doing some watercolor and needed to test how strong my tones were. Dropping pages out of here. Swatches for all of my oil pastels, and some more color notes. And then a weird thing where I drew a knee and then couldn't figure out whether, I came back to it and couldn't figure out whether the knee was back to front or front to back. So, is that the back of the knee or the front of the knee? I don't know. I think it's the front, but it could be the back. You tell me. Okay, and we're finished. So, I'm about to start on my next sketchbook, probably. There's a couple of little pages in here that still have some room for some notes that I haven't quite finished. But in terms of drawing, I don't think there's going to be any more drawing going on in this guy. I think it's time to move on to my next one. So I just want to let everyone know that I am a sketchbook fetishist. I love seeing people's sketchbooks. I get sketchbook envy for people who have these beautifully laid out, really attractive curated sketchbooks, but I also love a messy sketchbook. So please send me your sketchbooks if you've got some pictures or if you've got some videos. I would love to see them and maybe get some inspiration for stuff that I can try. We can talk about what works and what doesn't work in a sketchbook, what kind of stuff that you like to do. But I love to have conversations about sketchbooks. I love to see people's sketchbooks. Please send them to me. I will follow up around this post. I'm gonna put this video on my blog, and I'm also gonna add some photos of some of the finished pieces I ended up with based off of some of these things that you've seen in here. Whether they were successful or not, that's not the point. The point of this is to show you that oftentimes as well, when you're looking at other artists, it's very easy to kind of get down on yourself and think, oh no, my stuff sucks compared to theirs. But remember, they're only posting their best work. So sometimes you just want to see all the crap, and that's what belongs in your sketchbook. So thanks for spending this, 43 minutes with me. I really appreciate it, and thanks. I will chat to you later. Let me know what you think.